Hey guys, Dr. Prometheus here, back with our Madden 22 franchise video, what EA released on their Gridiron notes. So kind of their franchise updates. We're going to go through the homepage itself. There's going to be no cuts, anything like that. So I'm going to give you my thoughts in each section and how I feel about them. Starting off, they're going to start with franchise staff here. You can kind of go through franchise staff, strategy, season engine, franchise hub, that sort of thing. We'll go through all of them. So inside of coach and owner mode, franchise staff is a brand new way to manage your franchise. We have expanded the coaching roster to include offensive, defensive, and added a player personnel department that serves as your primary player acquisition character. So my feelings on this is a start. However, this I feel is not the end goal. I do like the fact that you can fire as an owner at this point. You can fire all your coaches and maybe you have an interim kind of idea in there, and you can kind of see what talents they have at face value. I do like that. However, my issues of this stem with the fact of we are back at a point where the head coach still has all the schemes. Now, I'm not sure if there is a union issue or if there is an behind the scenes issue that you can't have real life coordinators. I do get that. So, not going to harp too much on that. But one thing that could have been done is, in my mind, is you have an offensive or defensive head coach. From there, say Matt Nagy in this case is an offensive head coach, so he keeps his offensive scheme. In that, your defensive coordinator becomes your defensive scheme coach. From there, you do have kind of some schemes, like some sub schemes. I would like to be like Matt Nagy doesn't run the defense for the Chicago Bears. So it should be one where you have a full base scheme and then a sub base scheme. I would like that because then it gives you a little bit more strategy on who you have to hire, who you can hire. If you feel like your defense is the weak link, you can bring in a defensive minded head coach. You get some extra perks through that, and you kind of go through that whole deal. But this is a start. Definitely not the finish in my mind, but it is the start. So staff points. With the addition of staff points comes a brand new franchise currency called staff points. Staff points are earned through playing games, meeting selectable game day goals, and completing scenarios. Completed objectives and milestones will grant staff points to a singular pool, which means you can upgrade any coach character once you have earned enough points. So this kind of takes over the experience one. It's one thing to note that you can only get it by playing the game, which is nice for those guys that are more of the online franchise with your friends, that sort of thing. And there is a league setting that allows you to modify how many staff points each talent costs, which I do like. We'll get in the talent tree in the next section, I think. But I do like that point, how you can kind of tweak it. My only issue with this is how is the AI going to handle this? Me as a player, I might spend more points on a weaker portion of the football. So as for the Bears, I would spend it on my offensive coordinator, my head coach, and some scouting. Or say with a big offensive team, say like the Chiefs, maybe I want to spend it more on my defensive coordinator, my head coach, and my player personnel. Also, another thing is where the coaches going to be on their upgrades. A guy like Matt Nagy, who's been in the league for a couple of years as a head coach, is he going to have a couple of the talents, or like compared to say Andy Reid, who's been a head coach for 15, 20 years, is he going to have half of his tree, or is everyone going to start at zero with no trees? That's one thing that would be kind of weird is have a head coach who is a first time head coach because you fired someone and you become a new head coach and you have as many talents as a 20-year veteran head coaching. It would just be weird. We'll kind of have to see how it's implemented when the game comes out and how that is, but the biggest concern I have with this is obviously how the AI handles it. So we roll into talent trees. Reminiscent of the old NCAA 14, talent trees replace our old coach upgrade system by giving gamers tree structures with various boosts for each character. At launch, each of the four characters, yeah, so the character slots, so your head coach, defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, and player personnel, will have two sub trees associated with them. Each tree is themed to that character as well as the role that character has in the organization. So, what I would like to see is this is another area that can be done. I've kind of already looked through this, but head coach, you have your player growth, because obviously your head coach is going to be dealing with your players. Then obviously your head coach is going to be developing the staff. So this makes sense. However, what about a third tree for only the head coach, where if you're an offensive or defensive mind head coach, you get an additional offensive or defense. Put that extra play in making the decision to hire a head coach that much more rewarding and also strategic. So you have to think, if your defense is the thing that's failing and you think your offense is good but it's not playing up to your potential or what you think the head coach could be, well then boom, you get a defensive head coach and go forward. This is a real thing in the NFL, obviously, as we saw with the transition from John Fox with Chicago to Matt Nagy in Chicago. It was the defense was playing well. We need an offensive boost, so they went with an offensive head coach to press on from there. Now, that's a real thing, and I wish we did have that here. We do have some player growth. That's cool. So defensive coordinator looks like some O-line play and some some passive stuff, or injury stuff like that. Same thing here. It's just the basic stuff they're showing us right now. Contracts, you have your trades and contracts down here. There is one that they did say that was pretty cool, and that would be that you can unlock like an extra slot for your practices, in which you can get some players kind of upgraded that way as well, which is kind of cool. So here is the type of talents. Now that we've shared more about talent trees, let's look at the talents themselves. There will be over 60 unique talents at launch, with some having multiple tiers. There will be over 95 talent purchases. Okay. To try and capture what makes each character unique, we broke down talents in 4 categories: player growth, staff changes and improvements, on-field performance, and player acquisition retention. To make each of the 4 staff members feel different, the head coach focuses on overseeing the growth, development of the roster and staff. For example, head coach talent would be increased QB XP during the weekly strategy. So I think weekly strategy is the same thing as kind of like the practice Madden 21, like the practice XP. The offensive and defensive coordinators prioritize on the field product, essentially represent the entirety of the position coaches on each side of the ball. For them, you might see ratings boost branching decisions like boost defensive tackle block shed by 3, or boost left end, right end block shed by 3. That's kind of like your idea here. Experience gain for free safety, strong safety. That's pretty cool there. So it's kind of like your experience boost there. So, and then you kind of just purchase it. All right. To start, definitely. Lastly, the player personnel department is designed to build your team through trades and free agency. Some of our personal favorite talents are in these trees include trade discount for older players, which should be cool because you do see that, and hopefully the trade AI is fixed, or else this could be severely bugged and overpowered. Or scheme fits have more interest in signing through free agency. Now this one is big. This is a real life thing that I think could bring some good stuff to Madden franchise. That is, you see a guy who traditionally likes to have his hand in the dirt. He has a choice, and he goes out and signs with a team that has more interest in a team to go out there and play for a team that allows him to put his hand in the dirt. Like that is great there. It's my prior video, I kind of had the idea of more of the auction esque idea, but I would be happy with either that or the MLB The Show kind of direction. But I want it to be transparent. I want it to actually make sense as opposed to some randomness that we have in Madden right now. It gets very awkward and weird when a team goes after a quarterback that's an 86 overall when they have an 85 overall quarterback that's 5 years younger. That makes no sense. So maybe this helps a little bit. Since scheme fits would have a higher overall, and maybe if you have a higher overall guy that's not a scheme fit, it kind of prevents that from happening. But we'll have to see. This is the thing that kind of I'm about, although we can't avoid it as a player. Let's see how the AI does it. But lastly, there are special powerful talents at the end of each talent tree. We call these renewable or ultimate talents. Ultimate talents are stronger as they are essentially rewards for completing a character's talent tree. One of the most intriguing rewards is access additional focus player slots during weekly training. That is good. That is absolutely amazing. I like that. That's cool. The renewable talents take that a step further. These talents can be purchased multiple times, but have a cooldown that can be anywhere from 1 week to once per season. We will keep the renewable talents under wraps for now, so we'll have to see what we have in a franchise. This is a at release type deal, so we won't have to worry about that all that much. So we'll kind of check it out in when we get the game in our hands. The staff movement. When you load in the franchise staff for the first time, you'll have a full coaching staff already assembled for you. However, if you are unhappy with your coordinators or head coach as an owner, you fire them and hire somewhere else in the coaching candidate pool during the season. Okay. Generated coaches will populate throughout each year of your franchise, and some may be better than others if you get lucky. Okay. If you hire a coach, you will earn staff point bonus. The amount of staff points is inversely related to the number of talents that the coach currently has owned. This represents an important decision. Do you get more staff points to use across the board? Likes to shape the coach how you deem fit, or do you want the coach with more experience, thus more talents? Only the first hire of each coach position in the season will grant a hiring bonus, significantly less in season if you wait. Oh, okay. In the offseason, you will be able to hire coaches from an expanded pool, which will feature the ability to hire former head coaches as coordinators. Okay, there's our question. Ability to hire former head coaches as coordinators, and vice versa. You can hire coordinators as head coaches. Great. During a staff moves week only. Okay. Staff moves week directly follows the Super Bowl, so make sure you don't miss the window to give some down on your luck coaches a second chance. Okay. I like that. So scouting. They said scouting will be at the first live service update, and it will require a start to their franchise. I want to make that clear. It will require you to restart your franchise if you have one. It's not going to be for existing franchises at launch. So what does that mean for us? Well, we're not going to jump straight into a franchise to begin with. We're going to kind of be exploring the game. We might do some test franchises, some sim franchises, stuff like that, kind of explore some of the things we have in a franchise and some of the more back-end things that I had in a previous video on my wish list. And we'll kind of explore those things, and we'll do a franchise for a couple of weeks until we get this title update. But I'm liking how this is starting here in scouting. So, one of the most highly requested features for the franchise is a more robust scouting feature when searching for your future star player. Since scouting is a significant structural overhaul and fundamental piece of franchise, so it would be a live service update. We kind of went through that. So it's cool. So you're gonna have a region breakdown. You're gonna have your tiers. His experience is 5 years in Region West. Um, I'm guessing there's some boosts and things like that. Bill Smith. He's looking at the. He's the national scout. He's a tier 3, and he's looking at at 2 positions. We don't have one in central, so it's you can kind of see that experience is going to matter, you guys, which I do like. And you have your top prospects on here: Devin Kelly, Quinn Tucker, per that region. Now that's pretty cool. It also gives you weak strengths and weaknesses of it. Quarterback out west, yeah, you would have better quarterbacks out west, particularly because of the nicer weather. Same thing with wide receiver. Maybe not as much in quarterback corners. That may be in more of the tougher areas to play. So okay, weekly strategy feature. We have received tons of feedback how the week-to-week activities. So NFL is a long season. One of the biggest challenges head coach face is to find the right balance of weekly game preparation, game players, and right amount of rest. Okay, going to weekly strategies. Defensive game plan for the current week. The game plan will show important information about your upcoming opponent's offense, including their team stats and where they rank, their overall run-pass ratio, and recommended defensive game plan focus for the week. Recommended focus is determined by a few different factors. There's 6 different focuses. Defend inside, outside run, defend short, medium, deep pass, or contain the QB. Okay. Cool. So you're looking at Ronald Jones here from going against the Bucks. We're Andy Reid, so looking at the idea that we'd have to deal with this. Defend the inside run, so it looks like it kind of gives you a graph for those who don't exactly know what inside run is. That's pretty cool that it kind of gives you that idea and boundary wise. So in between the tackles. And I'm guessing here at least it's my assumption in this case, that a lot of your AI players that aren't player control will play better inside this box against any inside run plays. I hope that we're not going to see any weirdness with this, but we'll kind of see how it is in how the game plan focus kind of does with AI players. Here's all of the things. Here's the stats. Their play calling tendencies as an offense, run, pass, play action, that sort of thing. Okay. Kind of gives you also the player stats. The percentage of inside runs. Okay. Each focus will have a top threat player with some specific next gen stats and ranks associated with them while building this feature. For example, if you were preparing for the Super Bowl and playing against Tampa Bay Bucks, the defaulted game plan focus will show defend, deep pass, along with Tom Brady's deep passing stats and ranks. Okay. Offensive game plan would be similar. So you had run inside, outside, throw it short, medium, deep, and blitz counter. Another difference on the offensive game plan scheme is that the top threat players will not show player-specific next-gen stats, but team-specific stats. All of these next-gen stats, player-specific stats, and team stats are ranked along with pros and cons. Okay. Big improvement this year is our expansion of how game plan focus choices carry over into the game. Last year, you get small ratings boost if you call specific plays from whatever drill you chose for that week. Now in 22, each focus will also have very specific pros and cons for how the AI will play in-game. So in the example above, where we were talking about defending the deep pass, the pros are that your defenders are going to get a boost in man and zone coverage on receivers running deep routes by doing a better job of staying over the top. One more pro is that the defenders in deep zone assignments will automatically increase the cushion on receivers. While this helps cover the deep passes, the cons of this, we give up more room to underneath short and medium passes. Okay. So it kind of gives you an idea. These boosts in AI behaviors will only trigger when you call specific game plan focus play. So you can avoid the players if you want to. Okay. Remind me of added a new game plan tab on the play call screen, which will have these plays make. Okay. I do like that. One more note about the defensive and offensive game plan screens: the ability to view specific play call tendencies about your upcoming opponent. First and 10, second and long. Okay. We'll have to see how that is implemented with that. I know this was in there. This is more towards another user more than the AI. Additional major change we made week to week is a core loop that we have completely removed drills to earn different medals. Unlike previous years, only 2 position groups would earn training XP. All players will participate in the simulated practice of training and will therefore earn XP for the week. The amounts of XP will vary based on several factors. The skills trainer and the drills are still available in the front end, but you will no longer have those inside franchise mode. Okay, free practice still available. Okay, cool. Continuing with your weekly strategy is one of our biggest new features, the managed player health and progressive fatigue systems. Okay, I'm liking this. Practice is a big thing. This may also help to increase injuries. One of my complaints was always the injury slider was kind of messed up. And there wasn't really any situation where you'd have players get hurt before a game. It always had to be in game, so you never really had any issues going into the game. And I think this could bring a level of realism that the game's been lacking for a long time. We are introducing a new fatigue system where fatigue levels will carry over from game to game. This new feature ties in directly with the new dynamic game day feature. So when and where you play matters more than ever before. During the duration of every game, players will fatigue as they have in the past, but will only be able to recover up to a certain point. This will help simulate how players wear down throughout a game to the point that they are never fully at the same energy levels at the end of the game as they were at the start. As players fatigue during the game, specific position-based ratings will start to increase. For example, a running back with 92 speed at the start of the game may not be able to fully reset speed in the fourth quarter if he has a bunch of carries early in the game. So, third down backs, secondary backs, wearing down the defense, running the ball a lot, power, that sort of thing, later on in the game will be a bigger thing. Okay. During a franchise season, all players will end the game at a degraded fatigue level that will be brought over into the managed player health screens and weekly strategy. There is a player health screen with multiple options choices that you can make to help manage your players' fatigue levels. When first entering the screen, you will see an overall offensive defensive team fatigue level. This will quickly give you an idea where your team is currently fatigue wise. You will also see a depth chart type view that shows every player and their current fatigue level. At this point, you can decide the best course of action. As a coach, there are 2 choices you can make every week: practice intensely or player reps. For practice intensely, you are choosing how hard you want your team to practice that week, which means either choosing full pads or half pads. Full pads will give your players higher practice XP and game day and game plan focus boost, but will less fatigue recovery and have a chance for practice injuries. Nice. I do want to worry about that. Practice injuries is a new feature, but there is a setting to turn the practice injuries off if you choose. Okay. While I want it on, more choices for more people and how they want to play franchise or any game mode is something you will never see me complain about. In that, if you ever, EA, if you're listening to this in this 20-30 minute long video, if you ever implement a feature and you are unsure, put this in there. If someone complains about it, they can just turn it off. That's why I am not all crazy about X factors. But just as long as you have a slider for me to turn them off, we will go for it. Just let the guys play. And that's a whole nother issue for a whole nother video at that. But just be able to have that slider. There are no long-term injuries from practice, as most of them are only a week long. Half pads are the opposite. Lower XP, lower in-game plan focus boost, but a higher fatigue recovery and very low injury chances. Player rep option allows you to assign the practice reps for the week between the starters and the backups. 3 options are starters, split, and backups. Just like the intensity choice, each of these has pros and cons. Starters mean the starters will take the majority of the reps and will earn more XP. Game plan focus boost, less fatigue covering, higher injury chances. Split reps, just what it sounds like, splitting the reps. Backups get the majority of the reps. Okay. That's an interesting choice. I'm not sure at face value. I'm not sure how I do this. Maybe your backups. Maybe in my mind it'd be split or backup reps. I don't know. Each player will earn back a certain amount of daily fatigue recovery on non-game days. As the season progresses, a daily fatigue recovery lessens simulating how the NFL season is grind. Okay, this means you will need to pay closer attention to your players' fatigue levels as you get deeper in the season. When you play your game, also factors in tremendously as teams in a short week will obviously fewer days to recover. Okay, yeah. Therefore, you may need to change up your intensity and reps to give your starters more rest during the week. Okay. Playing on the road is also a factor. You will have one less daily recovery. Ooh, because you have a travel day. Okay. Getting more realistic. Yeah, I see you. If all of these new options and choices seem intimidating, no problem. We have added a new setting to auto manage these choices for you as well. Always put this in here. So if someone doesn't like it, they can just throw it away and not have to worry about it. When starters reach certain fatigue levels, the setting will change the intensity reps options for you. All in all, the new manage help options add a new high risk, high reward mechanic. Okay, I like that. Weekly strategy is your team profile. Like last year, you will see 3 focus players that you can select to earn extra XP from training. However, 3 additional focus player slots can be unlocked. Nice. You can have a total of 6. We tried to tie our new features together as much as possible. If you want more focus players to earn additional XP, this would give you a reason to try and go down a specific talent tree path. Another new addition to the team profile is a new selectable weekly game day goal. Each week, you can choose a goal to earn more staff points to purchase more staff talents. The goals range from easy to hard, with the hard ones awarding the most staff points. Each week, you can decide based on your point how aggressive or conservative you want to be. The team profile also gives you a snapshot of where your offensive defensive stance ranks. Okay, cool. I don't have to go into stats anymore. There's an easier way to do it. You can self-scout by viewing your play calling tendencies for those same groups mentioned above. Okay, cool. Especially for you guys that play a online franchise with their users. If you are calling for vehicles too often on 3rd and long, and this is a play calling report will help you show that. Okay. I wonder if the AI adjusted this as well. We'll have to see. Finally, after you have made all of your choices for the week and are ready to advance, you can select the start training option, and all the practice for that week will be simulated. When it is done, you will see the new training recap report will break down XP, amount of game day boost, fatigue, as well as players that were injured. Trying to come up with a more compelling and realistic feature. Even you're kind of stuck in this week to week thing. So just as long as you're doing a week to week thing, this makes it much difficult. Maybe I'm not sure how you break that, because in reality what I'd want is, realistic wise, teams tend to practice, to my knowledge. If you have a Sunday game, particularly a Sunday night game, Monday is not a hard practice. Tuesday, Wednesday, is like your harder practices from what I understand. And you kind of tone it down as you work into your travel day and you go into the game. But in this, you're simulating a week. So EA's kind of hemmed themselves into doing it like this. And I wish there was a way you could do it like this. You open up the screen, you select the intensity for each day of the week, and you still sim through that practice week. So you still are with a week to week basis, but you're able to actually pick when you want intense practices. So maybe you can tailor your stamina increase towards the back end more. But I mean, this is what you get when you're doing a week to week type deal. So I don't know. Season engine. It's a tool that drives narrative storyline moments that you'll see throughout the franchise. There was a major focus in Madden 22 not to only deliver a diverse, deep amount of content, but also make the content you experience more personal, exciting, and rewarding. We will feature over 30 brand new scenarios taking place at any point in the season. Okay, whether it be the preseason, that was one thing I felt lackluster is preseason. I felt there was no reason to play the preseason. You got your one scenario that you kind of just mentorship kind of deal. You had no reason to play the games unless you wanted to for excitement. For a franchise creator like myself, it's more for the excitement, the thrill, kind of exposing and showing some of those players that we've drafted. But there really wasn't a reason game wise to play it. Regular season playoffs, we really didn't have any playoff ones either. The only ones that I ever really saw playoff was this player is retiring. He gets a huge morale boost and try to get him a Super Bowl ring. I would like to see more things other than that. And in a Super Bowl one, we never saw anything for the Super Bowl, so that'll be interesting. Each scenario has context-based trigger conditions, meaning that what happens in your franchise is going to dictate when scenarios happen and what kind of scenarios you experience. Okay? We'll have to see how that's implemented. Modular cinematics. Number one goal with the season engine this year was to make narrative moments feel more immersive. There's really no narrative moments that I felt that were really all that big. But previously, all of our scenarios have been based around text message interactions. This led to similar scenario development, regardless of conditions. Yeah, I would say so. One of the first things you'll notice in the most dramatic change to the scenarios is the addition of modular cinematics, similar to what you've seen in Face of the franchise. This year, we'll be able to leverage the use of 3D environments and character models to create an immersive experience and more personal interaction between your coach and the characters involved in each scenario. Those were the things I didn't mind. Face of the franchise. I know I didn't play it in Madden 22 because it really wasn't all that much of a change in the grand scheme of things. I'll probably end up playing it this coming year as a linebacker. That's further down in this, but I'm not opposed to this by any means. Just make them interesting. That's all I ask, really. So, press conference is a new thing. So, kind of going more into modular cinematics, you have the press conference. You may find your coach fielding questions about how you're going to stop one of your rivals' top players or one of your players facing the media and speaking about the key to his recent rise to success. Now, I like the fact that it's both coaches and players. So you have that sort of thing that's really cool. But also the coaches are asking players about that. My only question is, do you have to be a coach to do this? If you can be an owner and still field the questions like this, I'm all for it. That was one of the issues that we had, at least in Madden 20, when the scenario engine was first introduced, I think it was, that you had to play as a coach because a lot of scenarios wouldn't fire, which naturally made us not even try to experiment as an owner in 22, and we just kind of stayed as a coach. Granted, we did a team that we were never going to move anyways in the Bears. And granted, the game was generally the same, so we kind of had a let's have fun with the Bears type of year, as well as the Dolphins. But we'll have to see where this goes. I do like this. It's all about how it's implemented. And from the look, I'm not opposed. We'll kind of see how it goes. Plus, if you have some janky stuff here, I like to laugh, so it is what it is. GM office. The GM's office can either be a place of encouragement and promise or a place filled with tension and accountability, depending on the circumstances. Early in the year, a meeting here might revolve around looking at a college prospect that is on the rise. I do like more focus on college prospects. I think not enough games do this. A lot of it just put them in menus, and then you'll see them at the end of the year or in the beginning of the year when you draft it. Even MLB The Show, 2K does this. Making them matter more would be awesome. And I think there's a lot of stuff in this Madden that could be cool, especially the dynamic moving around of mock drafts, stuff like that. If you implement mock drafts back in Madden, oh boy, that that would be great. While a meeting later in the year might have a tough conversation about what's going to take to retain your job. The locker room environment, you'll get a sneak peek behind the curtain that will include interaction between your coach and players, both before and after the games. This can include your coach warning the team about tough weather conditions or more personal interactions like your coach congratulating a player on his big game. Immersion. I'm all good with immersion. Give me more immersion, man. Okay. I love it. Give me immersion, and I'll be happy. These new environments will provide every new scenario with an immensely immersive and personal experience while maintaining a quick, fluid user experience. Okay, cool. The dynamic actor goals. New this year within our scenarios is dynamic actor goals. In Madden 22, we can directly assign goals to the players involved in our stories. Now, this, depending on how it's implemented, how they describe it, could be great for the scenario engine. These player-specific goals will be featured in many of our new scenarios and will show up in the Goals Hub. Upon completion, you will be awarded staff points to upgrade your franchise staff. Previously, interaction with your starting running back would likely lead to a goal for your team to achieve 100 yards rushing. This year, that goal will be directly tied to the player involved in the story, which will help tie together narrative stories that we're telling through scenarios and the players that are involved in them. And it runs into this. Another big goal we have with the season engine was to provide more impactful rewards through our scenarios. In the past, rewards have largely been based around slow burn effects like XP and morale, which resulted in a scenario not feeling as rewarding as it could have. We want those rewards to have more immediate impact to something that would feel either on and off the field. And that kind of goes into more of this stuff as they all tie in. One or more common rewards that will come from scenarios this year is temporary attribute boosts or potential nerfs. I do like that. I do want to see nerfs for players that do not play well. I do want to see that. For both your team as well as individual players. Depending on the situation and scenario completed, your team or player can end up with a large boost in key ratings for the next game or a smaller boost that lasts a bit longer. I like that. Conversely, failing certain scenarios can result in the opposite effect. Obviously, the balance is element here. We don't want it to be too frustrating if you get huge nerfs or too overpowered for you guys to play and use your franchises. Along with the temporary attribute boost, we will be offering the ability for players to receive permanent attribute boosts via scenarios. Reminds me of like the mentorship ones. Opportunities can range between a mentor helping a young player improve in a certain area, or a star player inspiring a teammate to improve their game. That's one thing that kind of lacked last year. And again, balance is key. Again, 3 to 5. Not crazy attributes, but I do like that. Superstar X Factors, we don't really play with these but we'll kind of go into it. Outside of ratings, we wanted to find more ways to reward you on the field for playing through and completing scenarios. This is where Superstar X Factor activation comes in. In our game plan, Elite QB scenario, if you're able to shut down one of the league's premier QBs, and your top defensive player has an X Factor ability, he'll have the potential to either have it active start of your next game. And this is what worries me, even have it active for the entire game. That kind of worries me, which is one of the reasons why we kind of shut it off. Staff points. In addition to scenarios having impact on the field, we also want to impact translate off the field and contribute to your ability to build your coaching staff. So we'll get some talent points there. And this is the big thing that I like in this. Joining our legacy breakout scenarios will be what we're calling tiered breakout scenarios. This is one thing that missed and could give some dynamic to franchise. These new scenarios can potentially span multiple weeks, which is great. And elevate a player, not just a single dev trait, but multiple dev traits if they can have sustained success. So essentially think of an idea that Kyle Pitts comes out and plays phenomenal. And even as a rookie gets a dev trait increase. Now imagine that year Julio Jones comes out. Or better yet, Calvin Ridley, relatively unknown. Played 1 year in the league, I think it was. Not like he came out and was a stud his first year. I think he had some injuries on him with Calvin Ridley. But he comes out as next season, and the guy comes out and has a year. Not a single dev trait, but that's where you give multiple dev trait. The guy has a year. If implemented right and not overpowered, this could be fun. Both XP morale return as potential rewards this year, but will be used more to supplement other rewards rather than being the primary source. However, in cases where XP or morale is the primary reward, we aim to make it more worthwhile. Okay. Franchise hub. So, some new visual stuff. I do like all of this on here. While it may look busy to some, to me, I love this. You have their top player. You see some of his stats. Okay, cool. You see his dev trait here. You can kind of flip between multiple players, it looks like. So you got 4 players, probably 2 offensive, 2 defensive, or maybe it's just the best guys on their team. You have their schedule, where it's at, kind of the defensive, offensive, and overall ratings. It's cool. You have your typical schedule at the top. What I like with this is you also have your standings on your first home screen, which I like. That's one thing that Madden 21 had issues with. I felt like I was transitioning screens a lot. And I do like the fact that your standings is here. And some goals for that upcoming game is your Andy Reid. I do like here you have, it tells you you're on a short week. This is a primetime game, which I do like that portion there. So that's cool. It'll tell you there's a player meeting. It's a short week. Obviously, your contract negotiations, your scouting, obviously your weekly strategy, your upgrade players, manage staff, manage roster, returning from injury, play season game, advanced week. I would be guessing that some of your league new and your news, things like that, will actually give you more of your background information. So I do like that, and obviously we'll have probably in the league will be all of the stats and stuff like that. I do like how this is set up. So that was one of the things they did is they wanted to reduce the number of clicks to perform core functions, and I feel like they've done it. So activities makes up your list of tasks. So kind of like your managed roster. So there's your depth chart. You look at the entire rosters, re-sign players, team salaries. Okay, cool. And it goes into the new staff. Home tab, so you have your game day, top player panels. So that's what you saw up in front here. Your goals were on the right side. Your standings are on the bottom. Key information about your active roster count. That stuff is always on the top. We even saw that in the interview phase with Andy Reid. You kind of saw how many were still on the roster. So the layout for the new home tab, customized for player acquisition in a buy or off-season weeks. This is cool. And a buy gives you your available salary cap, roster count. Okay. Your top needs. Ooh. Gives you draft. Oh. I like this. This is great. Rank. He's ranked 1 out of 5, 2 out of 3. I wonder if this rank is by mock draft or by you. But, ooh, I like that. What I would also like to see is instead of the game doing it by rating, if I could also assign what I think my top need is. Like if I got a middle linebacker that I really like, but he's a 71 overall, and I want to kind of play with him in the future, I want to be able to select someone another position. The news tab, okay, cool. Passing leaders, okay, cool. Obviously the options, so kind of easy agree for you guys that have user. Okay, draft logic. Okay, so we're going to have more draft logic. Hopefully that is something that's much better and teams can actually build. We're going to have to test this from the balancing of the dev traits and can't miss prospects. We'll kind of see how that is once the game's out. We're going to have to test progression and regression. At the end of the day, I'm sorry, but this is something that has to be tested, and you can't really take this into account words-wise. This is something we're just going to have to deal with losing dev traits, stuff like that. And trade logic we'll have to deal with. Okay, guys, that will end this video. A long one, 45 minutes, but I wanted to go through everything entirety. So thank y'all for joining me. Go ahead and leave a like below, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Later.